All right, now for our June affirmation, which is in the program and is in the chat for those who are online. Please read along with me. I am worthy of loving myself through acts of self-care. I care for myself in all ways so I may be whole. I rise above any judgment of myself to be healthfully, fully expressed. Joy expands in my life as I serve this body that houses the presence of God as me. This is my holy work, and it is good. And so it is. And now for a special reading, Reverend Evelyn.
All right, just to hold on 1 second. Okay. So good morning. I just want to open up the space a little differently today because it's a lot of things happening right now. There's a lot of things to be aware of, and I have to admit I've been so overwhelmed in my own life and my own responsibilities that I negated to pay attention to some things as much as I normally do and as much as I feel responsible to. And one of those things, well, first of all, Neil is correct. Yesterday we gathered. There was over 80 people climbing toward 90. We sang, we danced, we hugged, we kissed, we broke bread, and basically, I'm sure everybody there left there feeling like what I call we did church. Because I felt fed. All of me was fed. And for me, it was especially sweet because 2 out of my 3 sons were there and 2 of my 3 grandchildren were there. And there were other children. We were from a year and a half, 18 months, up to maybe approaching 80. We were of all colors. We were we represented, I think in the end, it was people from 6 different New Thought communities from New Jersey, and somebody came down from Rockland, from New York. So it was great. And it felt like what this should feel like all the time, joy. There was just joy, 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 joy. Man, and I had no idea how many people did like karaoke. So people, the voices, people singing, people who could sing, people who couldn't sing. But it was just joy. It was joy. And I threw a softball with my granddaughter, and we had bubbles for the kids. And I bring this to you because for me, that's beautiful community. That is beautiful community, people coming together who knew each other and who didn't know each other. So I just want to acknowledge what an incredibly humongous success that our gathering was. It was absolutely amazing. I also want to acknowledge right now, and my husband is, I can quote him for the amount of times he has said, nobody really cares about Father's Day. And I'm not going to agree with that. There is a difference. You know, when you guys are so committed, you pass a child from your loins, that's a little different. But in these communities, and right now I'm looking at a bunch of them, there are solid, healthy, beautiful, loving men that are fathers. God bless the fathers. And another father just walked in the room. God bless Neil, God bless Joe Schneider, Bill Sarnowski, Gaudet, Sal, and the other healthy men. I think about the men that helped to raise my son Seth when I was doing, the single mom thing. And I like to mention the names all the time because it's my way of honoring the lineage or the legacy that they made possible for my son. And since he was there yesterday, and you could tell that he's one of us because people like Joe Schneider, Bill Sarnowski, Joe Lavenia, Paul Traina were there for me and my child, my son, when I was basically being single. So for whatever criticisms are out there, in these communities we have healthy, powerful men being fathers. It is so beautiful. And I woke up this morning and I realized that, I watched my son yesterday just taking care of his daughters. When you only have daughters, it's for men, and there's a few of them in the room that only have daughters, the love of the daughters has to translate differently. So I just want to love and honor you all, and I would like us to raise our hands toward the fathers in the room. As we know, God Day, you get to receive. You are a receiver. And if you are out there and you are a father and you are conscious, the same thing goes to you. And I ask you to repeat after me. We see you.
We see you.
We love you.
We love you.
We honor you in your role.
We honor you in your role.
And we thank you for being the individual, the father that you are.
Thank you for being the individual, the father that you are.
May you feel blessed, loved, and seen. I thank you. And then today is a day short of, but another day, another celebration that is very important. And yesterday, one of the pleasures yesterday especially was the diversity at the gathering. It was fantastic. We were all shapes and sizes and colors, and I mentioned that already, but it was just so beautiful. So many people in our community are celebrating Juneteenth. And Juneteenth, if you don't know what that is, there was a 2-year delay between signing the Emancipation Proclamation to save those who were enslaved. And 2 years later, finally, U.S. troops rode into Texas and said, hey, hello? And so that's the day, 2 years later, that new celebrations began. And so now, in this day and age, the Juneteenth celebration is to acknowledge that it's the African American celebration of freedom and of coming out of enslavement. So we have Father's Day, we have Juneteenth, and of course we have the presence of all of us as spirit. So to honor that, there's a reading, whenever I search every year for readings, and this one comes up, the first choice, every year, no matter what. And I think it transcends than just this purpose. It is just the most powerful reading. And to bring that to you, we have Evelyn Bourne, our Reverend Evelyn Bourne, please.
Thank you. Before I read this, I want to say that Juneteenth is not to be celebrated to me. It's a commemoration for the decades and centuries of stolen labor of my ancestors. And so as we have, because it falls in the summer, it becomes like parades and fun and all that. And I feel like even though it's only been a federal holiday, this is the second year it's been observed, I pray that it doesn't fall into a 4th of July category where it just becomes that weekend when we all have barbecues, right? I want us to remember, at least in this community, that the labor of my ancestors was stolen to build this country. And injustice, even though the Emancipation Proclamation, which was a war strategy, we're not going to go there, it was just a war strategy. And my people are still not free. And it is my personal hope and desire and intention that my grandchildren, shall I ever get them, don't have any yet, will look back on this time and be amazed that there was actually a time when people were treated differently just because of how they look. So I want that to fall into a distant past as we learn to love and embrace one another and look beyond appearances and look into each other's hearts. Okay, that's enough of that. This is a beautiful piece by Maya Angelou, And Still I Rise, one of my favorite poems of hers, and I'm going to share it right now. And still I rise. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may tread me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and suns with the certainty of tides, just like hopes springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I am a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise.
And so now you know the other thing that we're here also to celebrate is our continuation of Pride Month. And next week we will have a choir, and there'll be quite the celebration next week. So hopefully you'll all come next week and enjoy that. And you know, there's so many things that I'm supposed to talk about today. The title of my talk today was The Body Temple, and maybe I'll get to it. According to the global themes, today's focus is about balancing grief and joy, and you know, maybe I'll get to that. But the song "I Was Born This Way," I'm just simply reminded when I hear certain songs that I have been tripping over myself my entire life trying to be something sometimes that I'm not. That's just the fact. Anybody know that experience? Mm-hmm. Just tripping over myself. Showing sometimes, not because I want to, but showing a false face. And I've spoken about this before, but we collectively, we have certain addictions, and I'm not talking about substance addictions. I'm talking about addiction to being nice, addiction to being liked. And so with those addictions, what happens is I deny myself. Because I think, well, Evelyn will like me in a certain way, but Joe Schneider will like me a different way. And so then I begin to twist myself into a pretzel to be accepted in these different places. And I'm going to behave, I'm not going to cuss right now, but inside I hear me cussing and saying, no more. No more. And there in that no more is a practice of self-care that we all can take on. I feel a little weepy about this conversation because I have betrayed myself and denied my essence because I judged myself. All these layers of things that I do so I could walk in here. Even here as a minister, and some of you get to know me behind the scenes, and you know I'm not very different. I mean, I'm more polite here. You know, I'm a little bit more ministerial, but most of you know behind the scenes that what you see is what you get with me. But even in that, I have to acknowledge that I have lived a lie for decades. And part of that, the lie, was cultivated because I didn't like me. I don't feel presentable. You know, and sometimes I say things and people think you have to fix me. I don't need to be fixed. I'm okay about my broken parts, believe it or not. I have broken parts. I'm okay about those broken parts. And you know, often I'll say, well, you know, I don't come to this point in my life with an education. No, I'm not beating myself up. It's just a fact. I have my moments of brilliance. They just don't happen to have a diploma attached to them. And I think that in my service to this community, specifically to this community, there's nothing I want more in my entire life for everyone listening is to be you. We can't practice self-care and deny our essence and deny our needs and deny our wants and likes. That's Joe Schneider's phone, just so everybody's clear. See, that's me being me. It's a Father's Day. Then it's okay. You got a get out of jail free card for that. What if we just stopped pretending? What would you be giving up if you stopped pretending that you're something other than what you are, or how you show up? I had a conversation recently with someone within the community, and I admit to you I had an annoyance. And often as a minister, I don't allow myself moments of annoyance. But I thought, here I am trying to practice self-care. So we were having this conversation, and I admitted out loud that I was pissed off about someone's behavior, right? It wasn't lovely. I think they were shocked. And they looked at me like, oh. But the fact is, I felt actually clean. I felt clean, and what I mean by clean is there was then nothing to back it up. I didn't have to come back and say anything else behind it, and I didn't have to figure out how I was going to then continue the conversation. I laid it all out. Not something you really want to hear me say, but not for nothing, there was a cause to that reaction. And I was willing to acknowledge that there was a cause to that reaction, and this was my pure reaction. I deny my reactions often. I deny my upset often. I deny my disappointment often because I think I'm supposed to as a minister. Specifically, the title minister makes me not me. Now, you might have other reasons why you are or why you're not. Maybe the way, when I look at my three sons, my two younger sons, I realize that often I'm around them, when I'm around them, I'm less me than I'm with my older son. The one I've called for years, my interesting son. For some reason, I don't mind being me around him. So so that relationship can be tricky sometimes. It can be filled with things. But it's honest. It's way more honest. Somehow I feel like I'm trying to earn the attention or the love or the approval of my other ones. I'm calling myself out here. I'm just telling you what it is. And I'm 66 years alive. I was born this way. And yet I've twisted myself into these roles out of not approving of myself. So I guess why I'm sharing this with you is I want to invite every one of you listening here and home. Where are you denying the essence of your being so that I will approve of you? Because I know that happens. I know you think you have to behave a certain way or act a certain way around me. What if you didn't? What if self-care meant being fully anchored in the self that we are? What would change? How would the world change if you didn't have to pretend? And I'm also talking about the kind of spiritual bypass that we do. Excuse me. Oh boy. Okay. The spiritual bypass, when we show up here, I would so love for us to wipe the slate of how we have created this community today and start fresh from this is who I am. No pretense. Are you feeling me? Are you getting this? Think about the parts of you I think the presence of God as you would be more glorious if you said yes to it in its purest form. I think that there is a glory and a beauty that is exactly who you are when you were birthed. Whatever color, whatever shape, whatever sexual orientation, that there comes with it. It would be nice if we were handed an instructions manual. And if we had an instructions manual, it might say things like, stop lying. Not only lying to others, but stop lying to yourself. Stop pretending that you're happy when you're not happy. Stop pretending that something's okay when it's not okay. Stop. And because what happens is slowly we create this false impression of life. And this happens on the collective. So Evelyn even called out something before she did the reading. I guarantee that the piece I began to read was written by a white person. Right? But if we don't challenge what we see, we don't challenge what we read, and we accept it as so, we become hypnotized, and then we collectively hypnotize. We are collectively hypnotized, and we don't question. We don't question the behaviors of our politicians, and we accept. We don't mind the little things, right? But it's never little for long. It builds up. We accept we accept some spiritual leaders being, having faults. Oh, well, they mean well. Well, anyone who calls themselves a teacher, a spiritual teacher, should be held to a higher standard, but the standard should be still honest. Honest where they are honest for themselves and honest for the people that they are influencing. What would change? I want to keep asking that question. What would change if you didn't have to be fake? What would happen if you didn't have to be liked? Could we have more honest conversations? Could we engage each other in different ways? This is what I want to promote and stand for as true self-care. You know, I don't always like this about me, and then there are times I love it about me. I'm a little bit of a mama bear. You all know. You've gotten phone calls from me or texts from me, and you know, I'm the one who thinks that if I don't get up and run across the room to greet you, that you won't feel seen. So those are I like that, and then I think to myself, why do I think you need that from me? Why do I think you need that? Aren't you enough of yourself that you don't need me in it? Am I making sense? But what if we all, and yet I still believe in gathering. And yesterday was full out proof. I left in pain because my body was just too much work. But I left so high, so stoned with the joy of gathering, that's what this should feel like. There should be no, and face it, New Thought teachings, you don't have to be here. You're not being saved from hell. And often we say, well, why don't the communities grow? Well, sometimes we get lazy in our spiritual practices, and I spoke to some people about that yesterday. And you think, oh, well, I don't have to do my spiritual practice today. It's okay, I'll be all right. Well, maybe you can get away with it for a day. But you start linking those days together, too many days in a row, and I tell you what you have. You have disconnection from something that feeds your heart and soul. This feeds my heart and soul. And I have the luxury of creating a community or creating a flow where I feel fed. So clearly we must be in sync because you're sitting in these seats or you're viewing here. Because I've been other places, I go, like that, right? Self-care should be a celebration of the self that you are. Yes, self-care should be about the body temple and treating it as a temple. Because when we treat it as a temple and not just this vessel that carries us around, when we look at it in that way, what if when you went home and the next time you looked in the mirror, you didn't just look for the reflection, but you looked for the essence of the temple of the presence as you? What if that you were to look at it that way? How would that change? So self-care is about loving the self, and self-care should be about honesty, and self-care should be, the poem, and I don't have the poem with me, but from Mariah Mountain Dreamer, where she says, can you honor yourself enough to deny another? Now that can sound kind of cold, because I also believe that we are here to serve each other. I do. But there are some times where we are so busy in service to another that we deny the needs of the self. You can't show up full. You can't show up wildly and wonderfully alive. If you are constantly in denial of your own needs, it's not possible. So what can we do now as individuals, What can you do now to change the way you love and honor yourself? What can you do to practice self-care so that it does feed your soul? I encourage you to look at this at home. I encourage you to, even as you're listening to me, to ask yourself, wow, where have I not been real? Where have I not been the full self that I really want to be? What have you denied? Because the denial, too, it happens one little decision at a time. I, a while ago, had to make a change in my life, and I've spoken to you about this. I had to return to some of my own passions. And this is not me beating myself up. This is factual. I'm creative. I'm not artistic. I don't have, that kind of thing that Bill and others here have. But I love to create. And I'm telling you, I will spend 2 hours doodling a silly little swatch of paper in the form of Zentangle just because I am focused down and it feeds my soul. So I have recently, for the past year, retrieved my creative outlet. I've begun to listen to music all day long, sometimes at home, all kinds of music. Everything from Krishna Das to the Beach Boys, to when I serve Italian food, I put on Italian music in the background. I am beginning to remember who I am. And so I feel happier and more satisfied. What feeds your soul? What feeds your soul? Please ask yourself that, because no one else can answer that. No one. You and I deserve to practice self-care so it's their whole body, whole being, whole heart essence, and we stop freaking lying. We stop lying. We dress the way we want to dress. We speak the way we want to speak. We engage the way we want to engage. And then, and you know, I've seen 2 videos recently, young women on Facebook. And it's the Gen Z. I think it's the Gen Z age that I'm looking at, maybe Gen X. And what they're saying is they're saying, if you don't like me, guess what? That's your problem. Not this era. Anybody can admit to that? If someone didn't like us, we wondered what was wrong with us. We took it in. Stop it. It's time to stop it. It's time to learn from our lineage. It's time to learn from those generations that are coming up, where they're saying, this is me. This is me. And if you don't like me, oops. It's not my problem that you are not approving of me. Now, some of us might look at that as rude. Well, too bad. That's your problem also. Because they're in their glorious expression. I still have opinions. I'm not without opinions about ways some of the behaviors I see, and some of us gray-haired people. I still like to be treated a certain way in a restaurant and stuff. And I look at some of the staff, I go, okay. Then I think to myself, is this me? Is this my problem? Yep, this is my problem. This is my problem. Because it's my opinion, because it's my judgment, and my judgment creates my reality. And I know that I'm the forgiveness queen, always talking about that. But the other day, I had an interaction or interchange with my eldest son, and I was really righteous. I was really righteous about it. And then when I got away from it, I realized it was my judging his behavior, which is what I teach you. Your judgments create your pain. Your judgments create the things that you have to forgive. And there I wasn't noticing it. So my self-care now is to take responsibility, because in taking responsibility, he has nothing to do with my pain and discomfort. As much as it might look like it. It might look like it, but our pain and our discomfort and our reality is birthed out of our opinions, your opinion, my opinion about us and about the world. Self-care is being bold. Self-care is about being responsible. I'm responsible for me and no one else. Does that make sense? Yes. So, I am begging you to go home and ask yourself the hard questions. What do I want? What feeds me? What lights me up? What sings my soul? And do those things. Do those things. And wherever you can, notice the addiction to being liked. Please, dear God, notice the addiction to being nice. See where you twist yourself into a pretzel and stop it. Just stop it. You deserve more. And there, in that moment, I get a sense, by any word, whatever you want to call it, God, love, energy, spirit, I get a sense that when we step back from our behavior, our conditioned behavior, as we have conditioned ourselves, I get a sense when we step back and we say, what do I want? And we stop twisting ourselves in pretzel. I think you and I are going to be downloaded with this energetic, universal love that we have been holding at bay from our own self-denial. Are you ready for that? Are you ready for that? Please. But can you imagine that? Like you step out of the form, right? Because we have a body, but we're not our body. But let's step out of the form and say, what feeds my soul? And declare that I'll speak in the I am no longer willing to be governed and treated and created for what's outside of me. I am ready only to be created by my own heart and the way spirit generates itself in my life. Let us treat on that. Hold hands with somebody if you're willing to, if you're here in the building. Feel the vibration. See, that connection, that's a beautiful, powerful connection. There is a vibration that moves through us when we connect. Oh, dear God, let's give each other permission, yes? Yes. Let's give each other permission to be who we are, yes? Yes. Let's give each other permission to be whole, yes? Yes. Let's give each other the permission to be wildly, wonderfully alive as we choose to be, yes? Yes. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you for the presence, for the energy, for the intelligence. I don't care, for the quarks if you need to, that create us. But what I know is it takes you and I to say, I am ready, I am willing, I am open, I am alive, I am on fire to be me. Baptism by fire means I will burn away the habits, I will burn away the resistance, and stand naked in the loving light of spirit, becoming who I was born to be, yes? Let us embrace this, let us know this, and let us see it in each other, and let us call each other out if we notice that we are playing small. And let us do this for our children, and let us do it for our grandchildren. And let us learn to love unconditionally, even when we don't like someone. That from our own authentic self, we give permission for everyone we know to be that. Yes? Yes. Please. Oh, I can't wait to see how the flowers that we are bloom. The blossoming of the lotus flower that comes from the mud and the muck. Oh, such a glorious image. This is who we are. This is who we are. And it happens now and now and now. Not later, not after you get home. It happens now. It happens through our demand on law that we free ourselves to be. Yes? Yes. Take a big breath with me, if you will. Oh, let's release any denial. Let's release any resistance and step forward into the light and love of our being. Oh, for this I am so grateful. And I surrender this word and I allow it to be so. Please join me with a rousing, and so it is. Thank you, Spirit.